Hi folks, this is Chris and welcome back to the Punk and Paisley channel, the channel in which if there was a fuzzy or distorted guitar playing for a small number of people sometime between 1965 and 1990, there's a pretty good chance that we're going to be talking about them. What do we have for you today? Well, I mentioned this earlier in the intro video to this channel that I am an American who has relocated to Europe. I brought thousands of records with me to Europe that are almost entirely in my own collection as opposed to ones that I plan to sell. I have for the last 15, 16 years been making a decent amount of my income from the sale of records, but most of those, for practical reasons, were left in the United States. And the overwhelming majority of records that I'm going to be speaking to you about, releases, bands, and whatnot, are things that I picked up originally in the United States, where I lived almost my entire life. I'm in my mid-50s, and I started buying records in about 1984 and 1985 in the States, at least, you know, adult records with my own money, that kind of thing. So that's the basis of them, and that's a lot of the market that I know. However, I am today going to talk to you about a few records that I picked up while I was here in Europe. Actually, while I've been here it's been just under a year now that we relocated. And these are things that you don't normally see in an American market, and they're specifically records which are rip-offs. They are low budget. They were recorded low budget. They were meant to cash in. They're cash-ins. Let's put it that way. Cash-in might be a little bit more fair than a rip-off. In that there is some original music on here. The intent was more of a cynical cash grab than you normally even get from the music industry, if you can imagine such a thing. However, there's some quality, enjoyable music on these releases. I have found them cheaply. I've checked prices on Discogs. They are not worth a whole heck of a lot, and you can pick these up pretty cheaply. You can keep an eye out at your local. If you're in Europe, in flea markets and record store bargain bins, and certainly online, plus postage. And if you're in the US, you're much more likely to have to mail order these from Europe. You're going to pay more in postage for these records than you are going to pay for the records themselves. And we're going to start with a record that I found at a large antiquarian flea market about, I'm going to say 2 or 3 months ago. And when I go to these flea markets, I go right for the clean out guys. That is to say, guys who are paid, they're paid to, you know, they're junk dealers, and they're paid to clear out apartments, clear out houses, and they sort through things in a very rough fashion, put them in boxes. The boxes are usually on the ground. They've usually not paid for the most expensive stalls that have some sort of covering over them from the sun and the rain. And they're usually out in the middle of the flea market floor if it's a parking lot, or they're off to the side somewhere. And very often they're immigrant dudes. Here they're usually North African dudes, and they're pricing things to sell. They haven't looked everything up, unlike the record dealers at the antiquarian fair. They haven't looked up the price of everything on Discogs, and they haven't assumed the near mint or mint price for everything on Discogs for things that may well not be. And I got a very clean copy of our first release for not much money at all from a very nice North African gentleman, and that is Electric Food. Electric Food. I'm sold by the cover and the title, Electric Food. I didn't know what this was. I grabbed the phone and I looked it up, and I would have bought this record at flea market pricing if it were easy listening. It wouldn't matter. Look at the glory and majesty of Electric Food. Look at that neon font. Look at the electric banana, or as I like to think Donovan would say, electrical banana. Donovan Leitch probably would pronounce it that way, would he not? I mean, they made a bit. They put more time and effort. When I say they, the Europa, the label here, and they're going to come up again in this video, put more time and effort into the cover, into the artistic. There was an artistic director hired to do the cover and did a wonderful job, bang up job. It's a plug-in banana. I'm sold already. I thought this might be like a Moog, a Moog synthesizer record or something at first, which I would also be sold on that. Sign me up. But looked it up, and apparently this was most of, but not all of, the krautrock band Lucifer's Friend from the Federal Republic of Germany, from the West Germany, who were hired. I think it's 4 out of the 5 guys or 3 out of 4 guys were hired with very minimal instruction to record a rock record that the kids would be into. And they took this, that was the brief. Again, there was more time put into the name of the studio band to be named later, and the artistic direction than there was in the instructions for Electric Food, who were told probably, we're going to lead this thing off because the kids liked their Led Zeppelin. This came out in 1971, I believe, and Whole Lotta Love. There is a cover of Whole Lotta Love, the Led Zeppelin classic. Well, what is it? It's a Muddy Waters classic, right? That Led Zeppelin, I believe it was Muddy Waters, that Led Zeppelin borrowed a few, lyric and chords and whatnot. Not anything, they borrowed. It was an homage. But a Whole Lotta Love is on here, and these people, Europa probably had to, pay Page and Plant for, the song that they wrote. And Whole Lotta Love is on here, and we're starting out with that. And I think that was the only instruction that they were given. My hypothesis is they were like, you're going to do this Zeppelin cover. We paid for the rights. And then play some music that the kids will like these days. So you got a krautrock band that's kind of off leash here. Right? And not to say that a krautrock band is normally on a great deal of a leash to begin with, unless they're into that sort of thing in their private time at home. And let's face it, it was post-war Germany, so the answer is probably yes. And then there's just a whole bunch of songs here, including, when you see a song titled Nosferatu, that's going to be a winner. That's going to be a winner. Nosferatu, I don't want to live in the universe in which sight unseen, I guess ears unheard, that you read the song title Nosferatu and the band's name is Electric Food. And there's no universe I want to live in which that is not going to be worth the price of a flea market record purchase admission. And it certainly is here. You got House of the Rising Sun on here, which is always a nice touch because that's, traditional. So you're not paying rights for that. That is also a theme that we'll return to in this video. And most of the songs on here are true to the whole krautrock thing. In fact, I only ever found one Lucifer's Friend cheap copy of one of their records at, I believe, at a thrift store once in the wild. And it was a later record of theirs. I forget the title, but I enjoyed this more than I enjoyed that. That record I actually sold back in the States. This is good stuff. And there is apparently a follow-up record. There was a second Electric Food album that came out in '72. It has a wild psychedelic cover. And the lead-off song there is I looked it up, and I have not seen one of these yet. I'm going to keep an eye out. You can get that cheap as well. Going to keep an eye out for flea markets and whatnot. I have a feeling I'll run across it. I have a feeling that's a record I'll run across when I'm out making my rounds looking at records, and probably don't have to seek out too hard. But that has a cover instead of Led Zeppelin. It has a cover of Free, the band Free, who were way more popular in Europe than they were in the US, where All Right Now is basically the song that they're known for in the US. But Electric Food, winner. Also on the Europa label, and I believe this is also 71, maybe 70, Rock in Blues, which I guess may be a little bit of a pun with the n. I found this actually was also at a flea market more recently. I think I paid €2 for this. Well worth the €2. It is the Automatic Blues Incorporated is the name given to the band. These are also Germans. And it says the lead singer's name is Jerry Blow. Jerry Blow. B-L-O-W. They know, it says the Automatic Blues Incorporated lead singer Jerry Blow. Which is like, I think he took the name because he's like a blues guy. Maybe he was blowing some harp. He's blowing some harmonica on stage. But it comes out to a native speaker of English like that's a punk rock name right there. Jerry Blow. That's like your Darby Crash, your Jello Biafra, your Frank Discussion, your Jerry Blow. Cover your ears, kids. It's Jerry Blow. Automatic Blues Incorporated, heavy blues, creamish. I was a little on the fence at first as to whether this was a keeper or a seller. For right now, it's a keeper. I got to give it some more listening. Well worth €2 at a flea market. And we might also note, interracial couple who had no idea why this stock photo was being taken. Certainly didn't expect to be on the cover of a Jerry Blow record, or Automatic Blues Incorporated. And by the way, could you come up with a more corporate-y name? Nothing says the Mississippi Delta more than the words automatic and incorporated. This couple had, in fact, they're models. They're probably not a couple, but interracial couple, early 70s. It's not like now when every laundry detergent and whatever product has, they're trying to appeal, at least in the States, they're trying to appeal to every market by every, constant interracial. No. This is the early 70s. This is the early 70s on a European release. This meant something. The fact that hippie biker guy is with a phenotypically African woman. This is countercultural. This is making progress. This is countercultural stuff here. Appreciate that. Breaking ice, breaking barriers. This is Kirk kissing Uhura stuff going on here. Props. Rock and Blues. And Green River is the cover. It is a cover of Creedence. But most of this is more creamy, heavy blues. Not so much John Mayall. Not so much Blues Breakers, notey blues. More chordy blues, if that makes sense. If you're a rock fan, probably does. Not Chicago bluesy material. And the final album that I have with me is something that I did pick up in a record store. It was in their bargain bin because here it turns out in Europe this is a pretty common record. I don't remember coming across one in the US. Pure fill-in-the-blank exploitation. This would be Hendrix exploitation. This is a tribute to Jimi Hendrix, and we're going to put what record label is this on? This is on the Joker label. Write your own Batman material there. We put a tribute to in smaller letters. We put Jimi Hendrix in very large letters in hopes of maybe there's a kid we can trick. Maybe they're not a native speaker of English. We'll get their hard-earned, whatever it was at the time, mark, peso, whatever, lire. This was on, I think this came out in a bunch of European countries, but this was for the Italian market. And this label mostly has re-releases of probably mono, cheap to license old jazz. is what's mostly on the back catalog here. But this was an unnamed, looks to be uncredited rock band of decent musicians. There was the director of production, Sergio Bologna, and they have one whole side of the record is called Tribute to Jimi Hendrix. So it was just like, hey guys, studio time, crank it, mojo workout time, and you guys do your thing. And then the other side has 4 tracks. They do covers of Voodoo Child and Red House, which are credited to Hendrix competently enough. And then they got to shell out. They got to pay for the rights to that. And then there's a cover of Hey Joe, which they are quick to point out is a traditional, and with an arrangement by who arranged this? Pete Shaw. Who might give us a clue as to who's playing on this, or Pate, P-E-E-T, Pate Shaw. See a Dutch guy taking a. I don't know Pete Shaw offhand, or Pate Shaw. And then something called Experience in Blues, which we've ripped off some blues song that we're not paying rights for. We're calling that traditional. But it's cut rate, do your best Hendrix impersonation. It's not Hendrix. I filed this under H. I filed this with my Hendrix records just to be able to find it easier. In part because of that, and in part because nobody's credited. It was a 3 for €10 deal. It seemed worth 3.33 or 3.34 euros for me to get this. I bought the Best of UFO, which is a record that you're not going to find as regularly in the United States because UFO was not as big of a band. I don't think that's a €3 record in the United States. And then I had bought a third record for the 10 to make it even and get the deal that I'm not remembering, but it's something I bought to sell. I bought it to flip because it was worth more than €3. Maybe something I had already. But yeah, that's a look for that too. And I would say, those are 3 records that are all cheap on Discogs. It's good rock stuff. You can crank it. If you're a musician, you can enjoy it. I would say the best of the 3 is the Electric Food, Lucifer's Friend in Disguise. At some point, I may talk to you about the Pretty Things Electric Banana sessions. I got the first, to my knowledge, the first LP pressing of that came out as a re-release in the 90s. I may talk to you about that at some point. But some bands or large portions of the band would make side money as getting paid like an old blues musician by the side. Just you're siding over the rights, and we're not going to give you full credit. Put your name on it. Here's some cash, kids, and you long-haired freaks, and crank your guitars and get the hell out of here. Is what happened there. I'm also going to talk to you about just a 4th record that I've picked up within the last year, and I had it for a little while. Bought it at a flea market for I think €1.50. I think I bought a single that I was keeping and this LP, and the guy gave me a deal, €3 for the 2 of them. It was a guy with a bunch of books and records, and that record is Op Latina. Op Latina. I'm not sure if that's if there's some sort of portmanteau word or pun there that I'm not getting. It was produced and packaged for sale in Italy. I may be putting this up on the screen for you right now. I may be doing a voiceover because I don't have the copy of Op Latina that I bought because I sold it. I bought it for $1.50. Could not find a copy of it on Discogs, and it is a compilation of mostly easy listening, light Latin stuff. Nothing that's going to get the Latin collector overly excited. There's not cool Latin funk on there. There's not even like cool samba on there. It's just kind of easy listening with a little bit of that Herb Alpert light. We're not even talking Tito Puente here. We're talking about light little cha-cha type little Latin touches. There's no Esquivel on here. This is not This is not something that cool. You would not describe this as space age. You would not describe this as even exotica necessarily. It's more mostly easy listening with some light Latin touches from people who probably don't speak Spanish. Exception being the main reason that I picked the record up, partially because there were no copies on Discogs. If you're looking this up on Discogs, I'm the one who listed it. And part of the reason I picked it up was that it had a couple surf bands on there, and the one that's most, I'm saying surf, really instrumental rock bands. Don't get too excited about this. When I say surf, I don't mean Dick Dale with high gauge bass strings stretched to their limit, with him going ham with oud runs. You know, that is not Dick Dale. It's not even quite the cooler stuff from the Ventures. It is more the, you know, earlier stuff from the Ventures, which is still cool, still quality music. And that is mostly coming from a group called the Spotniks, who are not well known at all in the United States. But if you spend any time in Europe at all at a flea market, perhaps a used record store, especially if it has 7 inches, you're going to have one of these I picked up in France a decade ago or so. The Spotniks, you know, they had a shtick, and their shtick was we're spacemen who play instrumental guitar, kind of surfy guitar. You know, this I picked up more recently in Italy. This is the Spotniks, and it doesn't matter pretty much any continental European country you're in, you're gonna find Spotniks records. This is obviously the prototype for Man or Astro Man. I love Man or Astro Man. I was able to see them live a couple of times in Philadelphia, which is where I'm from, and actually even met a couple. I got an autograph on I think on my ticket. I don't think I had a record with me from one of the guys in the band. I didn't expect meeting the band afterwards to be on the agenda. I didn't realize they were going to come out and greet the audience as we left. A fairly large theater venue. I think it was the TLA. For those of you who are in Philadelphia and are aware of it, like that's a fairly sizable place to greet the audience on their way out in your astronaut costume. But clearly, Man or Astro Man, who I do love, probably one of my favorite '90s. They're still going, I understand, but '90s origination bands, or bands that in the '90s I would actually pay money to go see, is them. And you know, Spotniks are the prototype. Although Man or Astro Man it's way more aggressive. It's way surfier, and it's got all of the space age audio effects that you might want to hear. So I put Op Latina up, figuring that there's some completist out there who would want the record, and it's sold in less than 36 hours. I at least as of my recording this video, I am the only person. The images on Discogs are mine, and I seem to be the only person who ever listed or sold a copy of Op Latina. I think the op part, it may also be related to op art, which you can tell from the cover art. Maybe, I don't know. But that's my video for today. I wanted to point out some cheap options for you, that if you like rock, if you'd like to hear some things you've never heard before, there's a good chance you've not heard of them. If you're in North America, you've probably never seen any of this stuff in your travels at record stores and flea markets and whatnot. It just doesn't come up often. I had never seen any of those releases, but I've seen 2 Electric Foods so far in the last 10 months, looking at flea markets. So they're out there if they're in Europe, and it explains why all of those records, save Op Latina, are available cheap. Again, if you're in the Americas, even if you're in Europe, you're going to pay more in postage than you pay for the record. And I give them, tepid to strong thumbs up, especially Electric Food. So that's our edition of Punk and Paisley. And you folks, you give me your feedback, comments, like and subscribe. You know how YouTube works by now. And I encourage you to keep on rocking in the unfree world.